Hi everyone, welcome to the channel After All That Years.
After 12 years of marriage to Linda, I thought I knew everything about her. We had what seemed like a solid foundation, 2 beautiful children, a comfortable home, and the kind of routine that comes with building a life together. Sure, the passion had cooled over the years, but that's normal, isn't it? What I never expected was to discover that the woman sleeping next to me every night was living an entirely different life. It all unraveled on what started as an ordinary Friday evening. Linda was at the kitchen counter with her morning coffee, scrolling through her phone while our kids argued over breakfast. Nothing seemed unusual when she mentioned her plans for the evening. "Don't wait up tonight," she said casually, giving me a quick kiss. "Meeting some colleagues for drinks after work." I barely looked up from my own phone. "Sure, have a good time." That evening, I settled in with Tommy and Sarah, made popcorn, and let them choose what to watch. It was one of those peaceful nights at home that I'd grown to appreciate. But as the hours stretched on, something began nagging at me. By midnight, Linda still hadn't sent her usual check-in text. By 2 in the morning, I was genuinely concerned. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe her battery had died, or perhaps she'd had too much wine and crashed at a friend's place. Even so, it wasn't like Linda to leave me wondering. She was many things, but irresponsible wasn't one of them. When I woke up the next morning, her side of the bed was still empty. The kids noticed immediately. "Where's Mom?" Sarah asked over her cereal. "She's staying with friends," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She'll be back later today." But as Saturday wore on with no word from Linda, my concern shifted to something darker. By evening, I was pacing the house, my mind cycling between worry and anger. Where was she? Why hadn't she called? And Just after midnight, I heard our front door open. Linda walked in like she was returning from a grocery run. Her hair slightly mussed, but her expression completely calm. "Long night," she mumbled, barely glancing at me before heading straight to the bedroom. I stood there in shock. No explanation, no apology, not even an acknowledgement of how her disappearance had affected me or the kids. The next morning was even worse. She acted like absolutely nothing had happened, sitting at the breakfast table, scrolling through her phone while I made the kids breakfast. That's when my phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. It was from Amy, one of Linda's old college friends. "Tom, I wasn't sure if I should reach out, but I think you need to know something. Linda wasn't at any work event last night." My heart started pounding. Before I could respond, another message appeared. "She was at a private party. I'm sending you a photo because you deserve to see the truth." The image that followed made my blood run cold. Linda was in a dimly lit room, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. But the context was unmistakably clear. This wasn't just any party. This was the kind of gathering that married people attend when they're looking for something they're not getting at home. I had to sit down. My hands were shaking as I stared at the photo. This woman, my wife, the mother of my children, had been living a double life right under my nose. I couldn't confront her that day. I needed time to process what I was seeing, to figure out my next move. But watching Linda go about her normal routine, making small talk about her day and asking about weekend plans, made me feel physically sick. How could she act so naturally after what she'd done? That evening, I called Amy back. "I need to know everything," I said. "Don't spare my feelings." Amy's voice was gentle but firm. "Tom, this isn't the first time. Linda's been attending these gatherings for months, maybe longer. They're invitation-only events for married people looking for extramarital connections." The room seemed to spin around me. "How do you know all this?" "Someone in Linda's circle invited me once," Amy admitted. "I didn't go, but I heard enough to understand what happens there. When I saw Linda's name mentioned, I couldn't believe it. I thought you deserved to know." Months. She'd been doing this for months while I worked late to support our family, while I took care of the kids, while I trusted her completely. Every kiss goodnight, every conversation about our future, every moment of intimacy we'd shared. All of it had been built on lies. After I hung up with Amy, I sat in our living room staring at the family photos on the mantel. Smiling faces from birthday parties, vacations, Christmas mornings. How much of it had been genuine? How long had Linda been pretending to be happy with our life while secretly seeking excitement elsewhere? That night, she came home at her usual time, kissed the kids goodnight, and settled on the couch with her phone like always. "Rough day?" she asked absently, not even looking up. "You could say that," I replied, my voice carefully controlled. She didn't press further. She never did. Over the next few days, I started making preparations. I contacted a lawyer, explained the situation, and began documenting everything I could find. He advised me to secure our finances and prepare for what could become a difficult custody battle. I went through Linda's phone while she slept, finding messages and photos that confirmed my worst fears. Each discovery felt like a knife to the chest, but it also strengthened my resolve. I wasn't going to let this continue, and I wasn't going to let her destroy our children's sense of security. By the following Friday, I had everything in place. Bank accounts secured, legal paperwork ready, bags packed for the kids and me. When Linda casually mentioned she'd be out with the girls again that evening, I simply nodded. As soon as she left, I put my plan into action. "Kids," I said, keeping my voice calm, "we're going to stay with Uncle Mark for a while. Think of it as an adventure." Tommy and Sarah were excited about the prospect of staying with their favorite uncle. They didn't ask questions, and I was grateful for that. I wasn't ready to explain the truth. By the time Linda returned home that night, the house was empty except for a note I'd left on the kitchen counter. "Linda, the children and I are safe. Don't try to contact me until I'm ready to talk. I know about everything. Tom." The next morning, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Linda. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I focused on getting Tommy and Sarah settled at Mark's house and explaining the situation to my brother. "You did the right thing," Mark said after I told him everything. "She doesn't deserve another chance to hurt you or the kids." Later that day, Amy called with more information I wasn't prepared to hear. "Tom, there's something else," she said hesitantly. "Linda isn't just attending these parties randomly. She's been seeing someone regularly. His name is Derek." Derek! The name hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just about the parties or the thrill-seeking. Linda had formed an actual relationship with another man while pretending to be a devoted wife and mother. For several days, Linda's messages ranged from angry to desperate to oddly apologetic. At first, I ignored them all. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I read through them. "Tom, where are you? You can't just take the kids without discussing this with me. We need to talk. You're overreacting to something that doesn't even matter. Tom, please, I'm begging you. I can explain everything. Just call me." She still didn't get it. She still thought there was some explanation that could justify months of betrayal and deception. On the fourth day, I finally answered when she called. "Tom," she said immediately, her voice shaky. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Where are you? Where are the children?" "They're safe," I said flatly. "That's all you need to know." "You can't just take them," she snapped. "This isn't fair." "Fair?" I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. "You want to talk about fair, Linda? Was it fair to lie to me for months? Was it fair to put our entire family at risk while you were off playing games with strangers?" There was silence on the other end, then finally, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Really?" "Because from where I'm sitting, every single choice you made was deliberate. Every lie you told, every time you snuck out, every moment you looked me in the eye and pretended to be someone you're not. All of that was intentional." "Tom, I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I love the kids. Please, just let me explain." "Explain what, Linda? That you've been having an affair with Derek while pretending to be at work events? That you've been living a double life for months? What could you possibly say that would make any of this better?" Her silence told me everything I needed to know. I hung up without another word. Over the following weeks, I focused on creating stability for Tommy and Sarah. We developed new routines at Mark's house, day trips to museums, nightly story time, weekend adventures that helped them adjust to our temporary living situation. One evening, as I tucked Sarah into bed, she looked up at me with worried eyes. "Is Mommy okay?" she asked softly. My throat tightened. "She's fine, sweetheart. She just needs some time to figure some things out. Will she come back to live with us?" I hesitated, not wanting to lie, but also not wanting to burden her with adult problems. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But no matter what happens, you and Tommy are my top priority. I'll always make sure you're taken care of." She nodded and settled into her pillow, satisfied with my answer for now. As weeks turned into a month, Linda's frantic calls gradually decreased. Whether she was giving up or simply regrouping, I couldn't tell. But the silence gave me time to think clearly about what I wanted for the future. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was disappointed. In Linda, in myself for missing the signs in the situation our children would have to navigate. But I was also determined to protect them from any more chaos. Around this time, I started seeing a counselor. It was something I'd resisted for years, but the weight of Linda's betrayal and the responsibility of single parenting was more than I could handle alone. "You've done an admirable job protecting your children," Dr. Peterson told me during one of our sessions. "But you're also carrying a lot of anger. Have you thought about what forgiveness might look like?" "Forgiveness?" I asked. "She destroyed our family. She lied to me for months. Why should I forgive her?" "Not for her sake," he said gently. "For yours, and for your children's sake. Holding on to anger takes enormous energy. Energy you could be using to build a better future." His words stuck with me, though I wasn't ready to act on them yet. One afternoon, Linda broke her relative's silence with a different kind of message. "Tom, I know I don't deserve your trust, but I want to see Tommy and Sarah. They're my children too. Please don't punish them because of my mistakes." I stared at the message for a long time. Despite everything Linda had done, she was still their mother. And as much as I wanted to protect them from her poor choices, completely cutting her out of their lives might hurt them more than help them. After consulting with my lawyer and Dr. Peterson, I agreed to supervised visits. It was the only way I felt comfortable allowing Linda to see the children. The first visit was awkward and tense. We met at a park near Mark's house, with me staying close enough to intervene if necessary. When Linda arrived, she looked exhausted and defeated, nothing like the confident woman I'd married. The kids ran to her immediately, and I felt a pang watching their reunion. Whatever Linda had done to our marriage, she was still their mother, and they still loved her unconditionally. "Thank you for letting me see them," Linda said quietly, as we sat on a bench watching Tommy and Sarah play. I nodded, but didn't respond. The hurt was still too fresh for casual conversation. "I know I messed up," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I hurt you and the kids, but I want to be part of their lives. I want to prove I can be a better mother." "Then prove it," I said simply. "Words don't mean anything anymore, Linda. Actions do." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I will, I promise." But promises didn't carry much weight with me anymore. Over the following weeks, Linda surprised me by consistently showing up for the scheduled visits. She engaged with the kids, asked about their schoolwork, and seemed genuinely focused on rebuilding her relationship with them. I remained cautious, watching for any sign that she might slip back into her old patterns. But slowly, tentatively, I began to see glimpses of the woman I'd fallen in love with years earlier. One afternoon during a visit at the park, Linda asked if we could talk privately while the kids played nearby. "Tom," she said, her voice tentative, "I know I have no right to ask this, but I've been thinking about everything that happened. I want you to know that I'm getting help. I've started seeing a therapist to understand why I made such destructive choices." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression neutral. "Good. You should do that. I also want you to know that I've cut all contact with the people from those parties, including Derek. I know it doesn't erase what I did, but I'm trying to change." Her words surprised me. For months, I'd been waiting for some sign that she understood the magnitude of what she'd done. This felt like a step in the right direction, though I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. "The kids notice that you're more present during these visits," I said finally. "That matters to them." She nodded, wiping away tears. "They matter to me more than anything. I lost sight of that for a while, but I never want to make that mistake again." As autumn turned to winter, Linda continued to show up consistently for her visits with Tommy and Sarah. She followed through on her promises, kept her word, and gradually began earning back small pieces of their trust. My own feelings were more complicated. The betrayal still stung, and I couldn't imagine ever trusting her completely again. But for the sake of our children, I was willing to work toward a functional co-parenting relationship. One evening, as I was putting the kids to bed, Tommy looked up at me and asked, "Dad, do you think Mom is really trying to be better?" His question caught me off guard. At 8 years old, he was already trying to make sense of the adult complexities that had disrupted his world. "I think she's making an effort," I said carefully. "What matters most is that she keeps showing up for you and Sarah. That's what good parents do." He nodded thoughtfully. "I hope she keeps trying." "Me too, buddy." Around this time, Linda asked for a conversation, just the two of us. We met at a quiet coffee shop, the same place we used to go on dates when we were younger. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Tom," she began, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup, I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me. What I did was inexcusable. I betrayed you. I betrayed our family, and I betrayed myself. There's no explanation that makes it okay, no excuse that justifies it. I listened without interrupting, studying her face for any sign of insincerity. I was selfish and reckless, she continued. I was looking for something that I thought was missing from my life. But I realize now that what was missing was my own sense of purpose and self-worth. I should have talked to you about how I was feeling instead of seeking validation from strangers. Her honesty was jarring. For so long, I'd been waiting for her to take full responsibility for her choices. Now that she was doing exactly that, I wasn't sure how to respond. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. I just need you to know that I understand what I threw away, and I regret it more than I can express. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of her words settling between us. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. It doesn't change what happened, but it helps me understand where your head is now. She nodded. I'm not the same person who made those choices, Tom. I can't prove that overnight, but I hope you'll see it in how I treat Tommy and Sarah going forward. As winter gave way to spring, Linda continued to rebuild her relationship with our children. She attended their school events, helped with homework during her visits, and even started communicating with me about parenting decisions in a way that felt respectful and collaborative. I had started dating again, cautiously and with careful attention to how it might affect the kids. It felt strange to think about opening my heart to someone new after Linda's betrayal, but Dr. Peterson had been right about one thing. Holding on to anger was exhausting. One evening, as I sat on Mark's porch watching Tommy and Sarah play in the yard, I realized something had shifted inside me. The constant knot of anger and hurt that had lived in my chest for months was still there, but it was smaller now, less consuming. Linda had made terrible choices that destroyed our marriage, but she was also working hard to be a better mother to our children. Those two things could both be true at the same time. A few weeks later, Linda approached me with a request that surprised me. Tom, she said during one of her visits, I know this is asking a lot, but I'd like to have Tommy and Sarah for a weekend. Just the three of us. I want to show them that they can depend on me. The request made my stomach twist with anxiety. Despite her recent consistency, the thought of letting her take the children overnight filled me with worry. I understand if you're not ready, she added quickly, but I think it might be good for them to see that I can be there for them in that way. After discussing it with my lawyer and Dr. Peterson, I agreed, but with conditions. Linda would keep me updated throughout the weekend, and the kids would stay at her sister's house, where I knew there would be additional supervision. When the weekend arrived, I dropped Tommy and Sarah off with a mixture of anxiety and hope. As I watched them run to Linda with excitement, I felt the familiar pang of complicated emotions. The weekend went smoothly. Linda kept her word, sent regular updates, and returned the children happy and well cared for. It was a small step, but an important one. That evening, as I tucked the kids into bed, Sarah hugged me extra tight. I had fun with Mom, she said, but I missed you too. I missed you both, I replied, my heart full. I'm proud of how you're handling all of this. Over the following months, Linda and I gradually developed a co-parenting rhythm that worked for everyone. Our relationship would never be what it once was. Too much trust had been broken for that. But we found a way to put our children's needs first and communicate respectfully about their care. I continued with my own therapy, working through the anger and betrayal while learning to build a new life for myself. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest and stable in ways our marriage never truly had been. One afternoon, nearly a year after everything had fallen apart, Linda asked if we could talk again. We met at the same coffee shop where she'd made her first real apology. Tom, she said, looking more at peace than I'd seen her in years, I've been doing a lot of work with my therapist, and I've come to realize something important. I need to stop hoping we can fix our marriage. Her words surprised me, though I realized they shouldn't have. I kept holding on to this fantasy that if I proved myself as a mother, maybe we could find our way back to each other, she continued. But that's not fair to you or to me. We both deserve to move forward honestly, not stay stuck in the past. I nodded, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. I think you're right. We can be good co-parents without trying to rebuild something that can't be fixed. I just want you to know, she said, her voice soft, that I'm grateful for how you've handled this. You could have made it much harder for me to have a relationship with Tommy and Sarah, but you put their needs first. That says a lot about who you are. As I drove home that afternoon, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't realized I was seeking. Linda's betrayal had ended our marriage, but it hadn't destroyed our ability to raise our children together with dignity and respect. That evening, as I sat on the porch watching another sunset, Tommy came outside and climbed onto my lap. "Dad," he said softly, "are you happy now?" His question made me pause and really consider my answer. The past year had been the hardest of my life. I discovered that the woman I trusted most was capable of profound deception. I'd had to rebuild my entire understanding of what family looked like. I'd made difficult decisions about custody and co-parenting that would affect all of us for years to come. But I'd also discovered strengths I didn't know I had. I'd learned to be a single father, to put my children's needs above my own hurt feelings, to forgive without forgetting. I'd started building a new life based on honesty and authenticity rather than assumptions and blind trust. "Yes," I said, hugging him closer. "I think I am happy. It's different than I expected, but it's real." He smiled and settled against my chest, content with my answer. In that moment, I realized that happiness wasn't about erasing the past or pretending it never happened. It was about finding peace with the present and hope for the future. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were exactly where we needed to be.